nothing builds trust faster than that. Like, you're going to stand behind your work. And, if you're in a smaller market, reputation is all you have anyway. In New York, you can get away with it because, there are zillions of other buyers who may, if you cut some corners, which, still, it catches up to you eventually.
Hey everybody, Chris G here, Hard Hat CEO, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about some good things, more team building, of course, and the best part, once you get that team started, we got a little extra profit running. We're going to talk about investing those profits in some real estate. And I've got Scott Harris here all the way from New York City to help me do that. Please help me welcome Scott. Scott, how are you doing?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Scott, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. So I am a New Yorker for the last 22 years. I moved here after 9/11, but prior to that, I lived in a lot of different places. But I started born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I cut my teeth and did a lot of stuff that prepared me in an odd way for real estate. Included, moving to Philadelphia, then Boston, and then here. But all of these different things I've done in my life, which includes a lot of music business and entertainment kind of work, ultimately prepared me to work with some of the most intense performers, so to speak, in business, and really allowed me to get to know people on a much deeper level. And it's been a pleasure to work with people in real estate for the last 2 decades, really helping people move forward. For me, real estate is the vehicle for helping people move forward in their lives. If it wasn't real estate, I'm sure I would have found something else, but real estate's turned into be really just a wonderful way to do it. It's been a real joy to get to help people.
Well, whether you're an investor or just a homeowner, you're still dealing with real estate. Somebody has to live somewhere. So
that's right.
To do all that, you had to have a team. Is that right? Or built a team?
Yes. So the team structure started when I had my wife and I had our second child. I realized I cannot do this all by myself. So it started in New York. The transaction number is a lot smaller than it is in almost any other market where you have like a super high performer. For us, our team did 85 deals last year. That is a lot. In some markets, you'd have to do 250, 300 sales a year to generate the sales volume. But here, our average deal size is about $2.5 million on our team.
Sure.
So it started in 2011. Was it 2011? 2010, 11, when I got my assistant, and then burned her out after a year. and because I was just working, working her way too hard. And over time, started to bring in more agents to help service the business that we're bringing together on our team. And then sort of messed all of that up again in 2014, really was working too hard and kind of burned out, and then rebuilt it into what is now Magnetic, which is agents and a whole team of people that are really in the right seat, the right who for what we're doing here, and people that are really talented in operations and marketing and so on. And then we have 5 agents that are helping our clients with the buying and selling. And I'm very much participating in that, but it's a real collaborative process that we built over time.
What's probably the most important thing you think you learned? I guess it was 2014 then. I guess you started it and you thought, well, I'm making a change. I'm adding more people. And that necessarily wasn't the right decision. It was part of it, but it wasn't the whole decision, right?
Well, look, I started selling real estate in 2013. So I did this for about 8 years, sort of on my own. And then fast forward 11 years when I really had kind of a breakdown. I'm like, something is not working. What I learned, the real lesson that I learned, Chris, is that you have to communicate. I would sort of not be happy with the way somebody was doing something, and I would just let it fester. And then at some point it would just blow up, and I'm like, okay, get out of here. It's too late. So I think what I learned is, no, if something happens, you have a conversation, maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable, but you address the thing. This happened, and this is how I'd like it, to happen next time. And somebody can take responsibility for what happened and you clean it up and you move forward. But it's like there's these lessons, these learning lessons that it serves everyone to be better, be a better communicator. It's funny that I stumbled over that, but it ultimately is, that was the real lesson that I learned. And that's with clients. Hey, let's get on the phone and talk. Let's, this thing happened. Okay, let's handle it straight on. And I found that clearer communication, you're not hiding under your desk. You're just saying what needs to be said when it needs to be said. That has really, I think, helped more than anything else.
Did anything happen with training, or was that necessary, or were you bringing people in that were already trained?
In terms of training, yes. I mean, do we have we call the whole thing is, we call it the magnetic method. It really does apply to when we're working with buyers, when we're working with sellers, but it also applies when we're working with our own agents. We're building out like what motivates you, what calls you, what are your goals and dreams and hopes, so we can like build a vision for that agent. And then in terms of training them, when we're training them how to work with clients, we're also training them how to do something for themselves. It's the same vision-driven process that serves everyone. So it's definitely a culture. We want to make sure somebody's a culture fit. That someone said, like, unless you have we're not complainers. We're like, okay, something happened. What do we do about it? We want to stay in the action. We want to stay in like the inspired action business, not in the complaining business.
Now you have other team members than just your real estate agents, right?
Yes. So we have a full-time operations director. We have a full-time marketing person. We have a transaction coordinator, and we have a kind of a marketing assistant, / assistant. So, I mean, there's lots to be done on the marketing side. And we've got other consultants as well, as needed. These days, social media marketing is its own thing. We have a podcast as well that we use, where we interview home buyers and what their stories are, what they go through. So there's a lot of different elements to be done. But then the agents, it's an ongoing conversation all the time with the agents about what we're trying to get closed.
How do you keep, agents obviously get commission and so forth. How do you keep your other people, your non-agent team, motivated? And is it the same kind of process as your magnetic method?
Well, it depends on the role. If we have more administrative folks, I think the way we want them to be bought into the vision for what we're trying to create magnetic. I mean, the idea that you have a people first business in New York where everybody thinks it's so competitive and so cutthroat, we're presenting it as, we got to do what we do best, stay in our lane, and the results will speak for themselves. And it's been true. Right? I mean, even we launched Magnetic in 2025. Last year was our best year in business in 2024. And everybody had made six figures, in the business. So we bonus people out, and we really try to make sure people feel valued in what they do. And it shows. People stick around.
When you're, I guess, hiring for new people, new staff, whether it be either side of your agents or not, how does your method work, and how do you bring them in? You mentioned culture being important. So,
well, look, Chris, we're still in what I would consider startup mode here. But the way I would describe it is that big box brokerage firms, real estate firms, it's the one industry for the most part where agents, where you're entrepreneurial, you're building your business. This is what we've been doing for all these years, but you don't really own your company. So what we decided at Magnetic is that we're going to build this business for agents, by agents, for agents. So I'm not saying that like there hasn't ever been like a profit share in any real estate company, but I haven't seen it work as well in New York in a real way, where people feel like they have ownership of a business in a more solid way. We want people to stick around because they want to see the value, they want to benefit from it as they build the business. So that's a differentiator for us. And, over time, we're going to build that out. It's early days, but I think that the playing field for real estate has never been flatter in terms of marketing. So, whether you have to build brand awareness. and you have to have a track record, but we've been doing this for 22 years, so we can tell that story. And I think it's about people who want to have a different experience, because real estate has become very corporate. It's gotten very consolidated, and the experience that the home buyer or the seller have is all based on the agent they hire anyway. So I really do believe that there's room for boutique brokerages like Magnetic to thrive in a market like New York.
You mentioned communicate, and obviously it's important to do it when it's necessary. Do you have regular meetings as well, or share information monthly, weekly, or how's that all work for you?
Right. And that's another piece that I think separates us. And again, I'm not trying to make this into a commercial. I think it's actually important for agents and real estate people out there to hear this, that there often isn't communication. Like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? The point of being a part of a team is that you get to hear you get to celebrate the victories for other people, but you get to learn from all the different deals that are flowing. So that if you're, instead of being a single agent doing like a handful of deals in a year, you get to hear about dozens of deals, whether they work out, whether they don't. And so you get into that deal flow. This is storytelling at its best, right? You're sitting in a meeting. And so we meet on Mondays and Wednesdays. Mondays, it's a motivation meeting. Like, how do you make sure you get your sales stuff going and get excited? And then Wednesday, we're stopping, pausing, reviewing our numbers and celebrating what we've been doing. And then there's a whole series of one-to-one meetings over the course of a week. And then every quarter, there are meetings with everyone to make sure that they're staying on their goals. What do we need to adjust? What are you doing right? What are your challenges? These are things that like are totally typical in like a corporate, environment where people are getting reviewed, but it doesn't serve anyone on a real estate team if they don't know what they can do better. So you want to have those conversations. People appreciate when you just nudge them a tiny bit in one direction, because that changes the trajectory of their career.
I think it's important that no matter if it's real estate or construction or making cookies at a bakery, that everybody has a team. They all talk about it, communicate properly. I find it fascinating to find and share it with others, especially my listeners, on what you do, for example, and how they can take some of those ideas into their own business.
Oh my gosh. I learned so much from my team. I hear they did something, the little tweak, the phrase that they use. I mean, you have to listen for the nuggets that are coming on. I mean, I hope that people are learning from me, but I know for sure I'm learning from them.
You have different levels of, I won't say hierarchy, but management, or like in my example, in my business, I have a working foreman. So they go out with the team. I don't have to, they're responsible for them. Do you have those type of layers within your organization?
We have people that are focused on sales. Some people, there are different specialties in terms of what people do. Some people are more geared to service buyers. They're just like, their personality is more suited in that direction. And
the buyer's agent versus seller.
A little more specialization around buyers, and some are more really geared to helping move sales listings. So we're cognizant of that. And then as they perform, they sort of reach certain benchmarks, and they can perform better, they can make more money, that kind of thing.
Okay. I promised earlier in the episode that we talk about a little about not necessarily investing, but how your methods can, as an agent, can help my guys as investors find the right properties, find the right agent for that matter.
Yeah.
Give me an example let's just talk about how your method works.
Sure.
And then we can talk more about, give an example later.
Sure. So, the company's called Magnetic. We call what we do the Magnetic method. It has 4 pillars. The first is, I'll give you the 4. It's activate, align, amplify, and attract. So the premise is that when you build a clear vision, you can attract the results that you're looking for. This is about, really getting clear what you want. And it's very focused on you as a person, as an investor, as a home buyer, as a seller. So we're sitting down and we're really trying to inspire you and help you find inspiration within you. Like, what is motivating you to move forward? That idea, I just had a liquidity event. I want to invest in something. I want a certain amount of ROI because I've worked hard. I've saved a lot of money. I want real estate to really be the backbone of my investment portfolio going forward. and we can dig into that and really, celebrate all that you've done as you showed up. Ultimately, the align piece is getting everybody rowing in the same direction. A lot of times in home buying, you've got a couple, 71% of the time, a couple's involved in the buying process. Here it might be one decision maker, which makes it much easier. But the key distinction is that you need to find someone who speaks your language. Are you data driven? Are you more of like a bullet point person? Are you really worried about the downside? These personalities come into play. So finding a person who speaks your language is such a better way of going through this process. Otherwise, you get really frustrated when you need data and the person just keeps telling you what a great building or a great location this is. You're like, that doesn't mean anything. I want data. So that's part of the alignment process, and really asking provocative questions, trying to get to the heart of the matter. Like, maybe we need to put a bunch of offers in so that we can find out what you really like. I really make that recommendation. It's like, put in offers, see what the seller says, and like, are you serious or not? With investors, you're like, they're halfway in, they're looking at different markets. You find, okay, what you really want is like a plug and play. You discover as an agent what the person's really looking for. They don't want an Airbnb. They want something that's like set it and forget it kind of a situation. And some people love the Airbnb.
Right.
In New York, it doesn't matter, Chris, because Airbnb doesn't really exist here. But and then you're talking about amplify, right? We're like really trying to get clear on that signal, like amplify, push, more showings and more communication. And then ultimately, I believe that if you do it right, you're talking to all the different people in your life. Somebody sends you a listing. Hey, what about that? And then like it just, all of a sudden the intuitive side of things kind of comes into place, and that property or that buyer will show up. So what I've found is that it's a much more plugged in, intuitive process that, obviously that's operating under the surface. Of course, you have the transaction and everything involved there, but those are the table stakes. Your agent has to know all of the nuts and bolts stuff, but I think it operates on that person level. And I think that ultimately is a much more productive process. That's how we've closed $2 billion of real estate over 20 years.
And you get stories for me, good or bad?
I'll tell you one story, Chris.
Okay.
During COVID, right before COVID, actually, a couple came to me, very successful hedge fund person, and they identified the property. It was a $18 million penthouse in Manhattan, and we want to buy this. And it took us 4 months, literally 4 months, to negotiate the deal. It ultimately settled at around 15 million, and we're going through the process. The building is still getting built; it's not completed, and COVID happens. And I ended up with my family. We rented an RV. This is not something that happens that New Yorkers often do, but we rented an RV because I wanted to drive to see my family. So we were to keep them safe and all of that stuff. So we drove from New York to New Orleans, and we were driving through West Virginia, where there's really bad cell phone service. And I'm getting a call from the guy who's in contract to buy a $15 million penthouse. Scott, I think we want to walk away from the deal. And I was like, I'm going to drive off the road. I'm like, all right, well, let me talk to them about it. And so we had this conversation, and, as it turns out, they didn't want to walk away. They just were really nervous, like everybody else in the world. They didn't know what was going on, and roadblock after roadblock, and they're worried about the construction. And we went through all of this, and Chris, like a year later, we closed. But it was like, how do you hold space in a way where people feel like their needs are met, they're heard and acknowledged, and at the same time, they thanked me so much at the end, because they knew it wouldn't have happened without me, because they just needed to vent all of their worries. They didn't really want to walk away, but that's a pretty clear example of, if you focus on the person and not, oh my God, I'm going to lose, hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission or whatever. Because don't make it about yourself. You got to make it about your client. How can you serve them best? I knew they didn't want to walk away. They were just understandably scared. And by the way, the market has rebounded significantly. That apartment is definitely worth an extra $5 million above what they paid, at least, if not, 10 million.
Right. Just nervous. And Well, we build houses for people, and it's like, don't worry about it. It's all good. I want to do this, but I want to change something, or I can't get this part in time. So that's all right. Here's another option. We give them options, tell them what the really going on.
Mhm.
But like you mentioned earlier, listen. It's probably the best tool that you have. That's free. Just listen. It's 2 ears. That's right.
Right. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in proportion.
I have questions. That's hard to believe sometimes.
Well, I can share one other thing, right?
All right, share it, please.
So I have a book that's coming out in mid-October called The Pursuit of Home. So, the book is really addressing what is true in home buying. There's this emotional world underneath the transaction. People think they're embarking on a transaction. What they actually are doing is a transition. This is what goes through and no one talks about, Chris. So the idea is, how do we bring this conversation into the public, where people can acknowledge that there's a lot that they go through. 65% of Americans own a home. It's one of the most common things people do. And yet you go on reality TV and it tells you this thing is going on, which isn't true. You go on social media and it tells you that this thing is going on and it's not true. And then you go to buy a home and your expectations are blown completely out of the water, and it doesn't serve anyone. So this is like, what do you actually go through when you go to buy a home? What are the roadblocks? What are the bumps in the road, so that you can have a better experience? And that's what I wrote this book for, people who are first-time home buyers and people who haven't done it in a while, because it's a new world out there. And what I realized is that real estate agents who want to up their game, who want to improve their emotional intelligence, the book's for them as well. So it's a lot of fun. I've been talking to a lot of real estate groups about it, and I've been talking to home buyers about it, and having conversations about, with buyers, what do real people go through when they buy real estate? And that's, the mission is really to help people have a better experience. And it, involves the magnetic method, like we talked about.
Well, and even the agents who could read it can at least understand what those people are going through. Because they're there with them, but they don't really understand sometimes the stress, or they're not the one making the payment at the end of the day.
That's right.
And then sometimes those banks make it harder for those people as well, because something out there that nobody knows.
That's right. Yeah, it's
whatever.
It's like you're looking, if you have any issues and trust issues or whatever they are, they come right out as soon as you get on that path to buying. You go to a bank and you're trying to get a loan, and if you feel like maybe you're not worthy, you're like submitting all of your life paperwork to this group, and like some nameless, faceless person in a underwriting department in Kentucky somewhere, or Las Vegas, and like, it just feels so impersonal and terrible. So there are a lot of parts of the process which can really trigger you. And so if you can be prepared for that, I think you'll have a much better time.
For my listeners who use spec homes, I'll tell you, talking about what we're talking about now is the banks, just even the insurance agents, because they'll have to go out and find insurance. And I tell people, so here's my card, and the insurance agent call me, because they're going to ask them questions that they have no idea. I don't know. It's a house. I like it. I want it.
Right.
Here's what I'm paying for it. But insurance agents don't care about that part. They want some things that they have no idea. And it's not even necessary, but I've answered lots of questions for insurance agents just to make it easier for the buyer not to stress over it. So.
Oh, sure. A lot of builders are, they want to be arm's length from the buyer. And I think that creates more stress. And I like to say, like, if you think a walkthrough is hard,
no,
imagine, the walkthrough of the spec house, where you got to create a punch list.
Yeah.
And it's really like unnerving for people because they love the house. Now let's go do something where you have to look at it, look for everything that's wrong with it. It's like the opposite of what you want to be doing right before a closing. It's like the most difficult emotional thing you can put yourself through. Because you're so excited, and then you go like crashing down into what reality in the real world.
I like to do the walkthroughs with them sometimes. Now, as a builder, just because I want them to feel that I care. I do care. I mean, not that they don't, but I don't want them to think I'm hiding something from them.
Right.
Like, come on. Well, I'll tell you what do you need to know?
No, I think that, that's a really good way of doing it. Like you're not hiding. Like, I did this work. If you see something, great, we'll fix it. I think
no,
that's
I do.
that nothing builds trust faster than that. Like you're going to stand behind your work, and if you're in a smaller market, reputation is all you have anyway. In New York, you can get away with it because there are zillions of other buyers who may, if you cut some corners, which I mean, still, it catches up to you eventually.
Absolutely, and in smaller towns like I'm in, recognition, name recognition, and we work with all the inspectors, and it's been inspected to standard. It's everything's done the same, and it's easier. I find that instead of cutting corners, just do all the same, and that way it's just faster. And you don't have to worry about figuring out.
There you go.
So, Scott, thank you very much. I want to put your information down below. What's the best way to get your book? Is it been published yet, or is there a week to it yet?
It's coming out on October, depending on when you publish this. It's coming out October 14th. So you can go and if you're listening to this after that, you can go anywhere you buy books. You can go on Amazon or whatever, look up The Pursuit of Home, Scott Harris, and you'll find it. If you want to get in touch with me, you can just go on our website, magneticre.com, and you can find out all about our company.
Awesome. Those links will be in the show notes below, and it should be right around October 15th, maybe the end of October, but it's all good. Thank you, Scott. And if you guys want to talk about how you can save time and effort and become a better CEO in your contracting company, reach out to me. My link below, Hard Hat the CEO. You guys have a great week. Thank you, Scott, again. We're gone.